The story of Somaliland is like many young girls sold into slavery each year. Growing up, Somali was an orphan on the streets of Cambodia. At a young age, she was sold into sex slavery, where she was abused and tortured every day. She was even forced to watch her best friend being viciously murdered by her captors. Fortunately for Somali, she was able to escape, and she created a home for girls just like her who needed a safe haven. Just like Somali, women and children are exploited for their bodies and treated like animals every day. If as human beings we can care about other injustices in the world, then why shouldn't we be concerned about the abuses, rape, and torture of women and children for profit? I cannot say that I know exactly what it's like to go through what these women and children go through, but I do know that even one person can make a difference and shine a light on an evil thing like this. With over 1 million girls being sold into slavery each year, raped, tortured, abused, and mutilated, a huge injustice is being committed against innocent people. As Christians, we can bring awareness and expose the injustice of sex slavery, and to share God's love and value for his people. I will begin by briefly going over the statistics of sex trafficking. And next, I will talk about how these captors lure in these people and sell them. And lastly, I would like to go over how, as people, we can bring awareness to sex trafficking and how we can make a difference and share God's love and his intrinsic value for his people. Nearly every country in the world is affected by human trafficking. 1 in 5 victims are children, and women make up 2/3 of the human trafficking population. 3 million women and children, including young boys, are enslaved in the sex trade, and 2 million of them are children, forced into labor, and half of them are in Asia. $32 billion are made off the human trafficking industry, and each criminal group involved makes at least $3 billion. As Christians, these should not just be statistics. These are human faces, people going through this, and we cannot allow it to happen. Most human trafficking occurs in developing nations. Most women are lured by the prospect of a better life and a good-paying job. When the girl arrives at a destination, she is trapped and forced into debt bondage, where she is forced to pay off what the captors bought her for. Some are even sold by their parents, who are poverty-stricken and need the money. And others are lured in by false marriage proposals, where they are then sold to brothels. As human beings, we see injustice everywhere and strive to stop it. The United Nations Convention Against Transnational Crime and Protocol has taken action to prevent sex trafficking. As of 2012, 150 states have signed the protocol to stop sex trafficking. The UNODC stated, "Fighting human trafficking should not just be seen as the responsibility of the authorities. Ordinary people can make a difference and tackle the crime, making sure that the plight of these victims do not go unnoticed." Even the United Nations said that it's not always the authorities who can make the difference, but people who stand up for what is right. Proverbs 24:11-12 says that we need to rescue those who are unjustly sentenced to die, to save them as they stagger to death. Don't excuse yourself by saying, "Look, we don't know," for God understands all hearts and he sees you. He who guards your soul knows you know. He will repay all people as their actions deserve. Even God is calling us to action, to save those whom he loves, who are oppressed and need him. As Christians, we are to be the light in the darkness, salt to the fallen world. We can get involved in organizations such as Freedom 424, which is a Christian organization that strives to stop human trafficking, as long as another organization called Half the Sky Movement, which is also set in place to prevent human trafficking. For God calls us to take care and to protect those who cannot, to save them from the evil and injustice in this world. So you can see that the statistics on sex trafficking are tremendous. Millions of young women and children are being kidnapped and tricked into a life of prostitution and abuse. And although governments are trying to fight against the evil, it takes people like you and me to make a difference. As Christians, God calls us to love others. He calls us to love the people who are oppressed, needy, and poor, to take care of them because they cannot take care of themselves. Through getting involved in a movement that aims to eradicate and bring about change to sex trafficking and trading, you can help. Even if you feel like you're not qualified to do anything, if you feel like you're not qualified to be in an organization or to get involved, even prayer can make a huge difference on the lives of these people. Jesus said in Matthew 25:40, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one at the least of these, you're doing it to me. Everything you do for someone, you're doing for God. Every person, no matter how big or small the contribution, makes a difference. Will you make a difference? Will you help stop sex trafficking?